It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Lightnin Charlie. Hey, Charlie, how are you?
Good, Douglas. How are you today, buddy?
Oh, doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. It's nice to have you with us.
I'm glad to be. I was told by your producers to make sure that I addressed you as Sir Douglas. Is that still appropriate?
Well, I suppose, but Douglas is fine.
You told me not to inflate your ego anymore. That
Douglas
that was your fan's
enough.
job. Yes.
So you are a musician. You're a singer-songwriter, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess going on 40 years in the business.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'm 60 years old, still trying to make it.
Well, I'm looking at your
Isn't
bio.
that sad?
It says 1962, so you and I are the same age, because I was born in 62
Is that
as well.
right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. What month?
May.
Which one of us is the elder? Oh, so I'm your elder then by a few months, huh?
Why? Which month were you?
Oh, I'm March. Mm-hmm.
Oh, 2 months.
I thought you had all that info in front of you. My birth date, my social security number, my the answer to my secret question.
No, all it says is Miami Beach, Florida, 62. So that's all I got.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's
Great
cool.
time to grow up, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad in a way, because when I speak with musicians, I don't know if you know that I'm also a musician, although I haven't been.
I did not know that about you.
Okay.
Wow. I know I've seen you have you've had a lot on your show. What do you play?
Piano primarily.
Wow.
But I can
That's
play.
Great. You feel like moving to Tennessee? I could use a good piano player.
Well, that's
leaving Las Vegas. I think that's been done, though, hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think that's the point of bringing that up, is because you're an active musician. Sounds like you've been one continuously. Where I was doing music when I was 18, 19, and then put it on the shelf for 20 years, and then came back to it. And now I've put it back on the shelf again, because this show has done much better than I expected it to do, and it's taking all of my time.
Taking most of your time,
yeah.
Sure. But that's great. Do you still play at home and stuff, and for your own enjoyment?
Yeah, I mean, I fool around.
That's good, man.
I haven't written anything since 2017 or something. But, there's always, when you're a singer-songwriter, there's always songs going through your head. Little bits, little tunes, little catchy phrases of lyrics. And, it's always there. It's just if you want to sit down and try to, fill it out and make a 3 or 4 minute song out of it. But the last thing...
What kind of style? This is me interviewing you a little bit, but I'm interested. What kind of style, music were you into?
Well,
or are you into?
I listen to just about everything, but because it's piano and because I'm singer-songwriter, I'd have to go with Elton John, Billy Joel, that type. Okay, but I listen.
My wife just suggested I learn honky cat just like a week ago, and I'm not a good enough piano player. I play piano, and I do some recording on my records where I have the liberty to take two, but I'm not a real piano player or pianist by any stretch. But I love Elton John and Billy Joel and that I love the piano. It may be my favorite instrument as a guitar player. It's just the most. Everything's there. You got rhythm, percussion, melody, dynamics, everything that you can do in music is there on the piano, and it's linear from left to right. It's understandable in the sense of it's black and white and left to right, and so yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Here's a sentence you've probably never heard, and it's never been uttered on the Douglas Coleman Show before. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Hand me that piano.
No, I don't think that's been said on this show at all.
Never, unless you've had George Carlin on, maybe.
Well, I think Steve Martin did that.
Is that Steve Martin's? Okay, I was thinking it's Carlin, see? When you get to be our age, it gets a little foggy, though, right?
Well, the interesting thing about the piano is that I am left-handed, and I was always trying to figure out how we could make a left-handed piano, but it would be impossible.
Oh, my brain hurts thinking about it. Yeah, well, I bet your left hand, I bet your bass is just strong as a rock, man, right? Because it's your dominant hand.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can do like a bass line at the same time that I'm doing. It's almost like I can do a solo on the left hand and then just bang some chords on the right, and then go back to just holding the beat basically with my left and playing. I can do both sides.
You know, there's a guy, Pig Robbins, one of the most, I think he's the most prolific Nashville session pianist in history. He's on just thousands of sides, but like so many, you know, hit records by everybody from, you know, recording in Nashville in the 60s, you know, George Jones and Merle Haggard and, Patsy Cline. And he was, his thing was a real dominant left hand where he would play melodic things on his left hand that just were very avant-garde. I mean, it was just very different than someone, you know, just playing rhythm on their left and melodic things on their right hand. That was kind of his signature.
Well, that's cool. What was his name again?
Not his Christian name, but everyone knows him as Pig Robbins.
Pig Robbins.
As in, yeah, Pig Robbins. And he died fairly recently, maybe 5 years ago, but I think he's even more than, you know, Floyd Kramer. I think he's more prolific as a studio guy than even Floyd. I played with a left-handed drummer. I had a blues band with my first band actually, and my drummer, this great guy. It was a blues band, and he hated blues. And his name was Paul, and he was a black guy, and so you know, blues being black music predominantly and primarily, and you know, invented by you know, black people, by and for black people. It was ironic that he hated blues, and we had constant struggles where he just wanted to play funk, and we're like trying to play like hardcore Chicago blues, like Muddy Waters and Little Walter and Jimmy Reed and stuff. And he was so sweet. He's the greatest guy and the best blues drummer that I ever played with. But he was left-handed and learned to play on a right-handed kit because, like you, most drum sets are set up like most pianos for right-handed people. Yeah. Right? And he had it benefited him style-wise where he did things, you know, because his dominant hand, his left hand, was on the snare, and it just made for, you know, a great sound that I've never heard from a right-handed drummer.
Well, it's interesting because a drum set could be set up left-handed. If you wanted to put the snare and the hi-hat on your right and whirl around to your left and put the floor tom on the left. I mean, it could be done. I don't think I've seen too many setups like that.
Right. So but a guy learning, it'd be similar to a guitar player who would, you know, you can string a guitar left-handed with, you know, the bass strings on the top. But when you're learning and you say, let me see that guitar, you know, it is probably going to be a right-handed, so you're going to be playing upside down. You know, that's why, you know, some guys like McCartney or something, but there's guys in the blues, particularly Albert King and Otis Rush are two that come to mind that were left-handed that played a right-handed guitar just upside down, you know, so the treble strings are on the top.
Well, Jimi Hendrix did that.
Well, Jimi Hendrix was Jimmy was left-handed, but his strings were strung for a left-handed. His neck, he'd have the Strat neck. You know, he still had the bass string on the bottom and the treble string on the top. Jimmy did. You know, he didn't play the strings upside down. He'd play the Strat upside down, his guitar, and that made for some very cool things that he could do based on the knobs. We may be getting too technical for people, but if there's gearheads and stuff out there, the knobs of the Stratocaster guitar would be right under the palm of his hand rather than having to reach to the bottom of the guitar like a traditional right-handed person would. And the tremolo arm would be at the top also, which guys like Stevie Ray Vaughan, for example, used a left-handed bridge so that the tremolo arm would be up under his hand, where it kind of made more sense.
Let me...
like Bob Dylan said, left wing, right wing, chicken wing, it's all the same.
Let me pivot over to the music industry generally, because we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left here, and then we'll get to your song. Since you're my age, we can talk about this, because you've gone through the whole gamut of vinyl albums to 8-track tapes to CDs to cassettes. Okay.
Yep.
And you were before internet and now after internet. Do you find the music industry now better because it's been democratized and everybody can put a song out? Or do you think it was better in the old days where you had to fight to get into the room, but once you got the door open and you got in the room, you were the only one there?
Great question, Douglas. Yes, would be my answer. I'll tell you, as a music fan, that I am still as big a music fan as I've been my whole life. I mean, I was buying records, 45s, at 6, 7 years old. I mean, I was immersed in music from the time I was little. And as a music fan, it's better in the sense of everything's available, and there's no search or journey to find a song or a record by an artist, some obscure or artist from contemporary or from 40 years ago. But that's bad in a sense too, because it's all about the search. And if you don't have to hunt, it's like somebody has to hunt for their food. If I hunt for my food, that hamburger, well, I don't know, do you hunt for cows? Maybe that's right.
Well,
but
I know what you mean.
The culmination you appreciate so much more because of the energy expended in finding it and getting it. But that's as a fan. As a musician, this business is, you caught me on a good day to ask that question, because I've been in the middle of trying to finish a record in 2 countries, recording my most recent album, which is going to be released this spring, in Canada, in Hamilton and Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and I'm in Tennessee. And we started this record by accident on a visit to Hamilton, Ontario in the summer of 2019, and went into this studio with my brother-in-law, and we're going to just cut some songs just for fun, because my brother-in-law had worked there and done a lot of sessions there. And my brother-in-law had told me that the studio had a lot of vintage gear. Oh, okay, cool, great. And was in there, and the engineer is getting me set up to do some vocal and play guitar and cut some stuff with my wife, who sings with me, and her brother Joe, that plays everything. And I'm looking at this 50s RCA ribbon mic in front of me, and I say out loud, I've got a picture of Sam Cooke with an RCA 44 that looks just like this one, with the same patina and the scratches and the dent on the grill. And the engineer turned his chair around and said, well, that's because that's that mic. And I said, what? He said, yeah, that mic, all this gear came out of Bill Putnam's A room at United Western in Hollywood. And I said, what? My jaw dropped, and he said, yeah, Elvis sung on that mic.
Oh, wow.
Everybody recorded on, United Western, everybody from Sinatra to Elvis to the Beach Boys, Pet Sounds, Righteous Brothers, the Wrecking Crew, the documentary on the great session band with Leon Russell and Glenn Campbell and all the other guys. And so I started to cry, because that's how much of a weirdo I am. I mean, I teared up. I didn't start sobbing because I was afraid he'd throw me out. But started this album, pre-COVID, and 3 years later, I'm still trying to, coordinate and record and get stuff mixed and finished. And the climate today, where like you say, everybody is invited into the room, and that's a good thing on the surface because everyone has a shot. But it's become so diluted. I'm dealing with trying to get my stuff on radio. I think it's legitimate and is certainly good enough for a lot of Americana radio and radio stations that play independent artists. But you can't even get them to look at your stuff because they're receiving 5,000 CDs a day. So
Right.
how do you sort through all that? And we released my new single Friday. It's called American Eulogy. It's a departure for me musically, but I think it might be the best thing I've ever written, and it's had more of an impact on listeners than anything I've ever written. And 4 days after its release, 3 days, I've made $12 from this thing. So in that regard, where nobody buys records, well, I should qualify that. People are buying LPs again, which is very cool.
Yeah, but not like it was. I mean,
it's not like it was.
No.
And so in a streaming world, unless you're the Eagles or somebody that really has millions of streams, I told my wife the other day, Douglas, trying to pay bills and buy gallon of milk and a dozen eggs, and she's upset. I'm upset. I said, honey, we've got enough money right now to last us the rest of our lives, unless we want to buy something. So yeah.
Well, my problem
so much
with
good
streaming,
about the industry, but
yeah, my problem with
Right.
streaming is that the balance is off. In other words, I was really good about downloads. Okay, but then when it came to streaming, that's when I sort of threw up my hands. Because if you think about it, you put out a song, and if somebody downloads it, they usually charge you $1.99, something like
Right.
that.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. $1.29.
Right. Somebody is going to have to stream that song 100 times for you to get that dollar. Okay.
Yeah, because you're getting like 1/100 of a cent. Or whatever
Right.
it is,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, I mean, if somebody were to, back in the days of LPs, somebody could buy your record and throw it on the bonfire. You still got paid. Okay.
Right.
With the download, it was the same thing. One download, and you got your dollar, or 78 cents after the distributor took their cut. But they paid $1 for it. Now, they could listen to that song once and delete it, or they could listen to it 1,000 times. The point is that you have to have 100 more or 99 more people listen to your track. Now, everybody has their favorite tunes. I cannot say honestly that I have listened to it 100 times.
Right. To where the artist that you love and enjoy made $1 off your
right. Exactly. So
loving his product.
That's my kind of bitch about streaming.
Hey, I feel you, man. And it's not like the money isn't there. Somebody's getting 99.995% of that $1.29. It's just not the artist. And that's where, I used to, the publishing companies, BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, I'm a BMI member, and I would receive quarterly. I don't get it anymore. I don't know what happened, but I used to receive quarterly the BMI magazine to members of BMI. And it would be about a 25 page, 8.5 by 11, high gloss cover, everything full color, paper stock. Is like getting like Vanity Fair or the New Yorker or something. It was this high dollar, high gloss, high quality magazine that was bulk mailed to every BMI member, every Tom, Dick, and Harry in America, or I guess, I don't know, the world. And I would look through the pages of this, and I'd see pictures of the CEOs and the execs of BMI at the Grand Hotel or at Bellagio's with Carlos Santana eating sushi. oh, here's the CEO at in New York City having sushi with Madonna, and it's like, where's the money for all this coming from? And I realize it's coming from me and millions of others like me, because I don't make enough money in a year from my songwriting for my whole life and whatever 7-8 CDs of stuff, and I've had airplay traditionally all over the world. I was enjoying regular rotation on Sirius for years, and so it's not like my stuff wasn't being played, but I couldn't buy a shrimp cocktail at the Grand Hotel with my check from BMI for a year, and it's just wrong. And they've had guys testifying before Congress. I think Peter Frampton and some other guys went before Congress.
Yeah,
Not
Lars
that anything came of it.
from Metallica was there as well. Yeah.
Or Metallica, right? Yeah. And I mean, what's got to happen? And like you say, the difference between downloaded streaming and piracy, and and when everything, if you're Gordon Lightfoot and your entire catalog can be downloaded for free, what's to motivate someone who doesn't have integrity to begin with to go and pay for it when it's there for free? I mean, if I've opened a store beside Walmart and just had everything they had for free, where's the line going to be?
Exactly.
It's just wrong.
I agree. Charlie, we got to wind this down.
You reckon we got enough? We good? We've been ranting and
Yeah. I mean,
and,
that's my style of interview. If you listen to the show.
Yeah, it's like just fly on the wall stuff.
Yeah.
I listened to the one that was cracking up, the TMZ cameraman I listened to, and Don. Yeah. I think that's right.
Mm.
And what was he? And I can't remember now the story. He told a funny, the King of Morocco or something.
Oh,
was
yeah.
that him? Or
that was Asher. That was the violin player.
The violinist. Yes. On a rooftop in New York City, that they were like stomping his. You must give us your camera.
Yeah.
The king
funny.
does not approve.
Okay, Charlie. Well, listen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Sorry to cut you off, but we
it's a pleasure, man.
Got to move it along here. And best of luck. Do you have a website you want to give out?
I do, Douglas. It's lightnin.charlie.com. LIGHTNIN Charlie, CHARLIE.
Okay.
And if folks are interested in downloading my single or upcoming music, my Bandcamp page is the best place for that because of what we're discussing. You get a bigger chunk of the proceeds. I think 80% goes to the artist. So that's at Lightnin Charlie, one word, .bandcamp.com.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again for coming on. Best of luck with everything you're doing, and I hope you continue to make music.
Thank you, Doug. Right on. I even wore my blue glasses for you today. I'm right here. I've got the face for radio, but I'm wearing blue glasses in your honor today, Douglas.
Oh, I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Hey, this is Lightnin Charlie, and you're listening to the Douglas Coleman Show. This is my new single, American Eulogy. Turn it up, pull the knobs off.
Oh, say, can you see? Are you looking at me? Like, share, and subscribe to my page. Stupidities, abilities, the impossibilities, our nation and people enraged. Turf wars, meth whores, Walmart superstores, even the swiftest shall stall. The brighter the star and the bigger they are, the farther and harder they fall. But hey, don't worry, be happy, the jury acquits those they should hang by the neck. And it's all good down in the hood, 'cause the mailman, he brings me a check. Street strife, thug life, pronounce you man and wife, pimp your own people to die. Big wheels, drug deals, sirens and cold steel, I'm weary of hearing the cry. Pawn shop, liquor store, shots fired, 3 or 4 over by Sweet Sarah Nail. get straight, retaliate. You're bound to be an inmate. Go call up your mommy for bail. Rat race, plant face, coming in last place. Punches in bunches they come. Free lunches they serve to throw us a curve, to keep us downhearted and dumb. Masks made in China, my mind's in Carolina. My patience is thinner than thin. Baseball and hot dogs and apple pie moon dogs replaced with Kardashians. Tattoo boo-hoo, throw 'em out when you're through. Forsake them babies you make. Cast blame, crime, shame. God made us all the same. How much more crap can I take? Millennial evil, boll weevil, who can evil? I'll jump the MGM Grand. I'm swearing you Karens and bloody red barons should start you a rock and roll band. Peaceful protests fill her up with high tests. The only place COVID don't spread. What a smart little virus. CDC should hire us some hippies to play Grateful Dead. My tears, they choke me. Wuhan has broke me. Our lives are put on the shelves. I'm looking right at you. No rebel gray statue could do what we've done to ourselves. On account of that basis, am I a racist? This song's for both black and white. Not sorry, not sad, it's just good and bad. Oh, there's millions of wrongs, but one right. Until we realize and quit feigning surprise at this mad manufactured maelstrom. Go twist and shout, 'cause I'm over and out of man's pandemonium. Right gear, what a year, make it all disappear. It's all right here on my phone. Healthcare nightmare, underwear everywhere there on Lincoln's tombstone. Race bait and friction, suicide and addiction. Is there ever an end to it all? Come quickly, Lord Jesus, deliver and free us from sin deep within uninstall. So go mow your grasses, your poor huddled masses, for soon every knee shall bend. Good night and good luck, lightning has struck, and will we ever be greater again?
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on The Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Douglas Coleman's Don't Do a Podcast is a dryly humorous rant about Douglas's pet peeve, the unrelenting torrent of podcasts hitting the web on a constant basis. As technology has put podcasting within the reach of anyone, many wholly unqualified people have taken the plunge. This witty polemic tries to persuade them from broadcasting their drivel using Douglas's brand of sarcastic humor. Now on Amazon, only 99 cents.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Are you an independent musician? How would you like to have your songs played on hundreds of radio stations just like the one you're listening to right now? Join MusicSubmit.com and we'll promote your music to radio stations and blogs in your genre. It's free to set up your account, and we guarantee your music will be considered for airplay by radio stations worldwide. Why not sign up today? It's free. MusicSubmit.com. Radio promotion for indie musicians.
Hey, this is Ray Powers. Don't touch anything. You've got it right where you need it. Tuned in to The Douglas Coleman Show. You heard me.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, John Malucci. Hi, John. How are you?
Hey, Doug. Pleasure to be on your show and an honor. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on. It's nice to have you with us. So, looking at your bio, looks like you're a musician. Are you a singer? Is that your primary instrument?
Yes. I was an opera singer for many years. Both of my parents were musicians. Actually, my father met my mother. She was an accordion teacher, even though she had a very extensive time in vaudeville, met many famous people. And his primary work was he owned a construction business. And so I was singing in the secular music for many years, and then I left to get involved with Christian ministry and Christian music.
Okay.
And that was in 2001.
This might sound like a strange question, but does opera singing pay well?
Well, I mean, I guess you could ask, you can't ask him now, but if you would have asked Pavarotti and Domingo and Carreras, it does. It can be competitive, very political, and it's also, as you know, it has a very long history, especially the tenor voice. And you know, I'm the kind of person that likes to study whatever field it is that I'm investigating. I recently got into, actually the last 20 years I've been involved with Bible apologetics, investigated that. And so when I was in opera, I began to study, what was the genesis, if you will, of, opera music, and how did the tenor voice basically manifest itself? Because there is a way to sing naturally, but it is, I would say, among the normal categories, you have countertenor, you have these other categories, but it's the most difficult category of all the voices, I would say, because you have a male voice that's singing at a full range, very high, full voice at a very high range is what I meant. And so technique is very important, and also perception, your focus, all these things are very important. And as you know, and performing, your mind can go to different places, and usually a lot of times when people perform, as you know, you're also a performer, I understand, and a lot of times we look at the audience, and many times people become very self-conscious, and they don't realize that the audience wants you to do a good job, So when we have this focus, this understanding, and also connection with the music, which is very important, and is, I believe, very lacking these days in all categories. When you have these things, it's about communicating an idea, a concept, whether it's Christian music or secular music of any type. And I noticed that, in my studies of basically the different characteristics and qualities that go along. You have also different types of singers in terms of their communication. You have some that basically would like to control their audience, and I hate to, for lack of a better term, like a manipulation. And you have those who would communicate, to their audience. They want to, take their audience with them on whatever journey it is, as far as with their music. For instance, Frank Sinatra was a very good communicator, I feel. And then you have others that maybe, like as I said, we're trying to get a reaction out of people, and these are two very different mentalities, I would say, even though sometimes you might have someone that may have aspects of both.
Well, you mentioned Frank Sinatra as being one of a good communicator. Who would you classify in the controller category?
Well, I would tend to say there are those that are not only using their voices, they're using props, they're using what they wear, So I would say, like many of the modern singers, and many of them, from a vocal standpoint, they're not. You have those who are very naturally gifted, and say like Whitney Houston had a fantastic voice, and you have others that it's more production, you see. And so I would say many of them are. So, when you need all these things, as I said, I would say I really don't want to name any particular individual. I mean, I think it's pretty easy to find out. But those who would use their platform to basically, like I say, in a form of manipulation. And so people are buying records not because of the person's vocal talent, but because they become, let's say, some sort of a sex symbol. Okay. And so it becomes about something else. It's not about singing anymore. And
I agree. I agree with you. And in fact, I had this conversation with my music producer, Stuart Epps, who also produced Elton John back in the old days, like in the early 70s when Elton was just, cutting his teeth. And this was a conversation that him and I got into, about Elton, because when Elton first started out, he dressed very plainly. He came on stage, did these brilliant songs. And then as he went on, he started wearing more crazy costumes and outlandish things. And there was a couple of concerts where he came out in a duck outfit, like Donald Duck. And I was asking Stuart, I said, why did he need to do that? He was such a great talent. I said, could you imagine if James Taylor came out on stage in a duck outfit? It would just completely blow the moment. It would absolutely ruin it. Or somebody like Neil Young, who was, such a great singer-songwriter. And, so I get it. I get what you mean. But with Elton, it was more like, now that he's famous, he can do whatever he wants. So that was his sort of attitude, but I get it. I mean, I think that I don't think the production should be superseding the talent, and I think that that's really more apparent now, or more common now. At least back in the day, before the internet and before all of the technological marvels, you had to be good to even get in the door. Now it's the production is really almost in front of the talent. So I know what you're saying.
Yes. And two things. First of all, for instance, Elvis Presley. Man was very gifted, had a great voice. And even though he used, the costumes, he was not, I don't believe it was for the purpose. He was like a showman, and this is like a little different. You have some that are, as we said before, they're looking for a reaction, and others just want to present you with a show, and also the advent of, just if you don't mind, like getting into the tenor, for lack of a better term, the evolution of the tenor voice, way back in the 1700s, rather early, the early 19th century. Around there, you basically had two categories of tenors, basically. And you had those that would sing what would become known as bel canto, which was known then also, but I don't know if you've ever heard of Giovanni Battista Rubini. And his form of production was very natural, kind of a sweet sound. And then you had Gilbert Dupre, who began to sing his high notes full voice. And it was like an anomaly. It sounded like from some accounts, they felt like it was like a yell. So this was like in 1837, William Tell. Okay, so basically, Rubini's category led to, let's say, if you ever heard of Fernando de Lucia, he was a bel canto tenor that was contemporary with Caruso. And of course, Dupre, his line led to Caruso, which eventually led to the low larynx style. It kind of started to branch out, and so, but with time it led to Arturo Malucci, who basically, if you've heard of Franco Corelli, the tenor, and Mario Del Monaco, they were both low larynx singers. It's a very muscular type of singing, and because of this, it usually those type of singers don't have a long longevity. Okay. And of course, with Lucia, we led to the French tenor like Georges Till, who was actually trained by Lucia. So the reason I mention this is because once the recording became popular, people began to imitate what they heard on record rather than being formally trained. And so now you have a lot of singers out there who don't have formal training, and they maybe imitate someone on an album, on a disc or whatever. And so this also was the beginning of the, like I would say, the deterioration of the vocal arts from that perspective of opera singers are trained to sing without amplification outside of the natural amplification of a theater. And,
right.
And nowadays, if you look in, I live in New Jersey, so we have a theater in Newark, not the old theater, but the new one, and other theaters are not very well acoustically endowed. And so sometimes I actually was at a performance at the Met, and they forgot to turn down their microphone, and you could hear this boom, where the baritone was singing. It was Rigoletto, and the baritone was having his first exchange with the bass, Sparafucil, and you could hear this massive boom of his voice. And he said, it's. And I looked at my friend that I was with, and I said, they're micing the stage. But anyway, I didn't mean to go on long thing.
No, that's all right. It reminded me of the film Sweet and Low Down. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there was a great line in that film. It was about a guitar player back in the early 1930s. And he was getting to be fairly well known. His idol was Django Reinhardt. And he said in one conversation, he said, they want me to record, but I don't know. He said, once you record your music, then people can copy you. And there was something very profound with that statement, where, his attitude was that people have to come see you live. That's the only way to hear him perform is live. And, there are some people that still think like that too, but, the recording industry opened up a whole new avenue for musicians to make a living by selling records. Well, that's gone now. It's come full circle. But it was an interesting statement. It's a good movie if you ever get a chance to see it.
What's it called again?
It's called Sweet and Low Down. It's fairly old. It was, I think, produced by Woody Allen. It stars Sean Penn as the guitar player. Yeah. And it's kind of there's a love story involved in it, but the focus is really on him, and it's a sort of a biographical type film. It's good, though. It's really good, and the music is good.
It reminds me of, I'm sure you've heard of the soprano Joan Sutherland.
Joan Sutherland, yeah.
Yes. I heard her on later recordings, and I they used to call her La Stupenda. That was her name, La Stupenda. That was the nickname. And when I heard her on some recordings that were like fairly within the middle of her career, sort of. When I was a child, I kind of didn't like opera singers, until I heard the voices of Caruso and Mario Lanza. When I heard these men, I'm like, no, these guys sound different. There's something they had more of a natural style, and so I at a certain point I heard someone that I wasn't familiar with her early work, which is unbelievable. Now you know why. If you hear that, you know why they called her La Stupenda. She had a massive voice, very flexible, high range. She had it all. In the middle of her career, her voice started to take on this, on record, I thought, like a strident kind of sound. But when I saw her live with Pavarotti in I think it was the late 80s, it was incredible. And it was as though she sang a pianissimo, and I was all sitting all the way in the back. And it was like the tone was right in front of me. It was something very, that I hadn't experienced before. And I was like, wow, this is really amazing. So, along with what you're saying, there are problems where, one, people try to imitate others, and they're only getting a fraction, even with the CDs and all that. I mean, you and I know that you can't, it's not the same as hearing someone live, especially someone without being amplified. Okay. And so they're not getting the full experience. And then, so they're trying to imitate these people. They might sound like them, but that's the problem. They're sounding like
they sound like, right. Yeah. I remember seeing Joan Sutherland on the Judy Garland show, and it was a trio with Joan, Judy Garland, and Ethel Merman, I think. It was a powerhouse of voices. It was really pretty incredible.
A story for you. My mother actually, she toured when she was young. My grandfather was her manager, and she toured with, have you heard of Benny Davis? He was a composer and performer, and he was in the she was in this troupe with many famous people. One of them was Ethel Merman, as a matter of fact. And I have this old picture of Ethel Merman, beautiful. She looks beautiful, and it's signed, and and then also Judy Garland. My mother told me a story where, because my mother was a singer and an accordion player, and so as you can imagine, with time, the accordion didn't translate well into more of a popular genre, and piano, yes, I mean, you have Jerry Lee Lewis and others that use piano for and various other genres, like you mentioned, Elton John. But so she was at this audition, and she's telling me how she was sitting next to this other young girl named Judy Garland, because they were the same age. Wow. So they went for the same audition. Yeah, she brushed shoulders with a lot of Three Stooges, Bill Robinson, Bojangles, as they called him, and he actually taught her how to dance, she said. And Dick Powell, she did a skit with Dick Powell where they were dancing together. Jan Pierce, if you ever heard of the tenor Jan Pierce, and others, other people, John Bowles, the movie star, and Red Skelton, Henny Youngman, So it was an interesting, very fascinating, hearing her stories about, different things that took place. She was went on another audition, and she witnessed a screen test of, if you heard of the great Italian soprano, Italian American, Rosa Poncell. Rosa Poncell was doing a screen test, and she had this long coat, very long, fur coat that was one of these 1920 kind of deals where it would drag on the floor, 20s, 30s, and just fascinating, like a time capsule. As you're, with myself, as I was going to New York, even when I was taking lessons, you would see a famous person here and there, and then once I began to sing, I met various people in sports and entertainment field, other singers, opera singers. I met the boxer Jake LaMotta one night. Have you ever heard of the Osties in New York, Mr. Coleman?
The what?
Osties, the old restaurant.
It sounds vaguely familiar. Yeah.
Osti's was for many years, about 78 years, the Osti's restaurant was like a place where performers would meet, and they had singers there. They had their own singers. I was a paid tenor, and I was singing there between, performances. And so one night, Jake LaMotta comes in with a group. And so my boss, one of the owners, his name was Augusto Mariani. The Mariani family owned the restaurant. And so he goes, John, you know who that is? And I said, who's that? He goes, that's Jake LaMotta. I said, Jake LaMotta? He said, yeah. He said, you want to meet him? And I said, sure. So I walk over and with we called him Augie, Augusto. So he says, yeah, Jake, one of my guys is a fan, And I said, oh, how are you, Mr. LaMotta? I shook his hand. And, if you ever seen the movie Raging Bull,
sure.
Jake became like a comedian, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
and Augie was so used to being around all these famous people, and they would play off each other, So he says to, Jake LaMotta, he says, yeah, Jake, he goes, I used to box. And so Jake goes, is that what happened to your face, And he started laughing, It's like a little thing, Jake had that kind of humor, But you see these, kinds of, seeing these people. Kelsey Grammer walked in once, and I guess he, for some reason, he immediately walked out. David Copperfield, seemed like a very nice man. Other people, when I was at the, doing a gig over at the Plaza Hotel, up the upper town, like near the Columbus Circle, there were some people, Anthony Quinn, Liza Minnelli was very nice. I remember that Yoko Ono came in with Sean Lennon.
Okay.
And she was very nice. She was very nice.
The people that have met her, generally speaking, say she's very nice. The people that haven't met her tend to say otherwise. That's what I've found, because I've interviewed a couple of people that have met her and know her, and it's the perception of her that, she broke up the Beatles that everybody still has in their head, which isn't true at all. John, we got to wind this down. We are quickly running out of time. Yeah. I just wanted to ask you, are you still performing as an opera singer, or do you do something else? Or you said you kind of switched right over to Christian music?
Yeah, I do Christian music. I've been trying to, before I got sick, I've been trying to get my voice back to where it was. I was vocalizing consistently, and then I got that flu last week, so I have to pick it up. And I do what you would call Christian contemporary music, and I do the classic stuff. So
okay,
because they're kind of So that's basically what I'm doing right now. And also the way I got to your contact information was some people I do evangelism with out in the street. We actually do a whole service. We singing and evangelism, the whole thing, feed people, in the streets. And they knew Michael Durso, who contacted your show, and that's how I got the contact.
Okay, well, it is a small world. Well, I'm happy to have had you on the show. We do have to wind this down. Are you still performing, or are you strictly doing studio work now?
Well, right now it's, as I say, in churches, when they ask me to sing. But my primary thing is I'm trying to get my voice back to where it was, because it does take time. And when I was singing opera, I would practice for, I would vocalize for maybe an hour and a half, and then I would practice for another hour or so, and then I would go to work. At Osti's, we would work I have a 6-hour shift, and I'd be singing on and off for 6 hours. So technique was really important.
Yeah. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a voice for 6 hours.
Exactly.
If you strained it.
Exactly.
Well, John, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Hi, this is John Malucci. You're listening to the Douglas Coleman Show, and also The Story of Our Savior, contemporary Christian song, original. Hope you enjoy it.
This is the story of our Savior, who came to us one dark and lonely night. He was born to take our place upon the cross, and died to save that which was lost, that we might have eternal life. This is the story of the King of Kings, who conquered death and darkness with his everlasting light. He walked the earth in suffering and in pain, and with his blood he washed away our shame and gave us robes of white. This is the story of God's true love. His love will never ever let you down. The love of Jesus is our everything. He's there for you when no one else can understand. No one else can lead you to the promised land. This is the story of the mighty God, who watches from on high within his kingdom in the sky. He's offering you a better way. Oh, won't you come to him today, before your chance is gone? This is the story of our Savior. Hallelujah. Glory, glory.